Hey, what's going on, guys? You're Gavin here, back in another video. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at both a macro and micro guide at playing Vayne ADC. So this is not going to be like a typical cookie getter sort of guide that focuses on like items and builds and all that. You can look up any build you want online. You can sort it by win rate. I think that's pretty common, but for the most part, I want to start making videos that align with a little bit more advanced detail on each specific champion. I think we all can follow a build guide on UGG or whatever. You don't need a YouTube video to tell you what to build. So we're trying to cater these videos around more, again, micro and macro and how to actually play the champion. So let's start with the early game. So the biggest trap that a newer Vayne player is going to fall into is trying to, air quotes here, win the lane in a traditional sense, such as like pushing or trading or constantly looking for some sort of like 2 versus 2 fight. But usually when you're playing Vayne bot, that's not how it goes. Most of the time, you're going to be the weaker laner, and that's okay. The trick is learning how to lean into that weakness and come out ahead. So good Vayne gameplay is going to start with wave control. So you don't want to push unless you're crashing for a reset or if you have full vision coverage. So typically you want to keep the wave a little bit closer to your turret. That's going to give you the space to be able to play defensively while punishing anybody who oversteps. And you're not really playing to win a trade necessarily. You're kind of playing to make sure that the enemy messes up a trade, right? They push deep into you, you get a jungle gank, and then you have it like a 3 versus 2 sort of situation. But of course, your jungler doesn't always gank, so that doesn't always work out. But really, as Vayne, you're trying to make your opponent overextend to you. Now, in terms of your enemy messing up a trade, let's say they try to engage on you, and you can use your Q not necessarily as a damage tool, but you want to use it to evade a specific attack. So if they waste an ability, they try to go into you and they completely whiff their engage because you evade it or you tumble out of the way of it. Now all of a sudden you have a disadvantage. They have an ability on cooldown, and that gives you guys an opportunity to fight. So you want to hold your Q until it matters. The longer you sit on it, the more unpredictable you become and the more pressure you actually exert even when behind. Now, also in the early game, we want to take a look at Condemn. And sure, we all know that Condemn can stun into a wall, but you can also use it to kind of peel or interrupt a champion's animation. So for example, against certain champions, you can actually cancel their animation as they dash to you with your Condemn. And you can actually stop and engage altogether a lot of the times with your Condemn. So you might not always get that flashy wall pin, but you can use your Condemn in other ways besides just stunning somebody with it. Your Condemn is there to create space, essentially. Another thing you don't want to do is get baited by specific minions, right? You don't want to get baited by a cannon minion because that's not going to be worth 200 or 300 health points to get that cannon, because you're going to lose lane priority and you're going to end up missing 2 or 3 more waves just by going for that one cannon minion. Because you're going to have to back, essentially. So you're not in lane. Overall, you're not in lane to win it. You're there to scale. And you're there to kind of pick your moments. So a safe 70 to 80 CS at 10 minutes with all your summoners, your ult, 0 to 1 deaths, that's going to be a win in my book playing Vayne bot. All right, let's talk a little bit about mid-game. So mid-game is where Vayne kind of starts to feel comfortable. You're not necessarily strong at this point, but things are getting better. We have access to our ultimate. We have more tools at our disposal. We're getting more CDR in our Condemn, getting more CDR in our Tumble. We're getting very mobile. Now, one thing you're going to do in playing Vayne is you do not necessarily want to always be showing on the map. You don't want to just autopilot and just group mid. You're not something like an Ezreal or a Jinx or something who does good in like a front-to-back sort of ARAM style. Vayne kind of wants to play around skirmishes more than anything. So something like a jungle fight, like a broken vision sort of scenario, and you're kind of playing almost in a weird way like an assassin. You're trying to use your stealth a little. You're trying to use your mobility. You're trying to find a 1 versus 1. So you're not necessarily the best in a team fight. You kind of want to show up at the edge of a team fight, right when things are starting to kind of clean up. Right when people have used most of their CC, most of their ultimates. That's kind of when you're wanting to come in, ADC in general, but even more so on Vayne. So this is where side laning becomes, your main option. And Vayne is actually really good at it, right? She's a good skirmisher. She's good at 1v1, but you're going to need some sort of vision and jungle tracking to be able to do it properly, right? So when you are splitting, you just make sure you're properly putting out control words behind you. You want to hover kind of towards a wall when you can so that you can kind of tumble, condemn, and kind of exit if you need to. But, side lane is kind of where you want to be. And this is where final hour, your ultimate, kind of starts to matter a little bit more. Now, one thing about final hour is you don't necessarily want to press it right at the start of a fight. You typically want to use final hour when somebody has fully committed to you. You're not really using your final hour, your ultimate, for its damage. You're using it for its survivability. So when somebody is on you and attacking, you want to ultimate. And then, of course, you want to Q to get that stealth. Give you a couple seconds. Is going to make them kind of difficult to track where you're at and use it to create spacing with your condemn. So when you do get in a fight and you do create that space, you want to keep your auto attacks very clean with your passive. You don't want to cancel anything with like a rush tumble. You don't want to miss any of your silver bolt procs by accidentally hitting a minion or something and resetting those silver bolt stacks. Silver bolts don't mean anything if you're not finishing with that third shot. So if you have made it finally to the late game, this is going to be, what you've been waiting for. All eyes are going to kind of be on you, and your team's going to be looking at you to carry them. So this is kind of where you start to become the real problem, right? So late game Vayne is going to be a test of spacing and threat identification. So in every single fight, you should know two things: who can CC you and who's going to try to dive you. So whoever can CC you, you want to stay away from them, obviously, so that they can't. You're going to create that spacing. And some champions like a Talon or something, they're just going to dive you. There's not too much you can do. So you want to try to save your ultimate and your tumbles for those specific champions. And your overall goal is to survive the dive. Whoever it is probably going to be an assassin. So that's going to be your main goal in every team fight, is to create spacing away from the team fight and try to survive the burst. Now, hopefully you have a support who can kind of help you survive the burst, something like a Sona, somebody who can peel back for you. It's something you're going to need to communicate with your team. Like, hey, this guy's diving me. I need peel back. It's very important to communicate that. Now, one thing to note is when you are fighting late game, you don't really want to go in a straight line. You want to be as unpredictable as you can with your tumbles. So try to use your tumble in a diagonal sort of direction. The more unpredictable that you are when playing Vayne, the better off you're going to be. Every missed skill shot is a huge win in your book. And if somebody does miss their CC, typically when you're fighting against a Vayne, you're just going to die in 3 seconds, right? Another thing late game is don't try to be a hero. Just try to be alive. Don't try to just dive in for their backline and try to snipe the Caitlyn or whatever in a couple autos. You are the sustained damage on your team, and late game, the longer that you're alive, the more autos that you can get off, the more sustained damage that you can do, which is your role in your team comp. Now, late game, this is going to be where you're starting to group a little bit more as well. I know we said mid game, you're kind of splitting a lot. Late game, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do, especially as those assassins start to get more items and can kind of one-shot you. It also becomes more risky as the game goes on to split because those death timers increase, right? So this is going to be a stage in the game where you're going to have to start working with your team a little bit. And this is where communication comes in, telling your team to kind of peel for you. And again, just keep that spacing between you and the enemy team as much as you possibly can. And this is kind of why we were saying earlier that vision is so important. You want to make sure that when a team fight is initiated, the enemy team doesn't even think you're there. They think you're in base. They think you're in the bot side jungle farming or something. Then they're going to engage. You're going to commit on your team, use all their ultimates. And then all of a sudden, you're going to kind of show up. You're going to have your ultimate. And you're just going to be able to clean up because they blew all of their abilities fighting your teammates. So you don't really even want to show late game. If you can, stay in the shadows, just kind of hang out in the back line, wait for that fight to engage, then go in and clean up. All right, guys, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next one.